Agora a gente dá início à nossa Conferência Web.br 2017.
So the Web.br 2017 is our 9th edition. We are so happy to have reached this 9th edition. This is a conference which is organized by W3C, our Brazilian office, and Ceweb.br. They all work under NIC.br umbrella, which is the Center for Information and to Control.br, which is the executive office for NIC.br Brazil. It's not very easy to have a long-lasting conference, and we do hope that will last even longer. Our goal, ultimately, is to share future achievements in the Internet world. NIC.br participates actively in all discussion forums where W3C participates and raises those standards to be adopted by the market. Standards, they address new technologies, emerging technologies, and technologies that will become effective in terms of technology, new technologies, and to be accepted and to be adopted. As part of our working groups, we have most companies and tech organizations participating, especially those large companies which are early adopters of new technology, and universities that they are the seeds to create new technologies. This conference, though, will somehow anticipate future endeavors, new technologies, and that will be addressed in different ways. Let me invite Professor Hartmut Glaser. Professor Glaser, he is the executive secretary of Internet Committee in Brazil. He's also director of the group that manages and works as an advisor for NIC.br, which is the executive branch of our committee. He's also one of the pioneers in creating the governance, internet governance task force in Brazil. And he also participated at the creation of that Internet Framework Committee in Brazil. And ever since, he's been in the leadership of that multi-sectorial work of Internet governance in Brazil, which is an international acknowledged model. And that is supposed to be the best Internet model ever. And Professor Glaser has been a very important player for W3C in Brazil and NIC.br. We are all intertwined. We work as a group, and we have been able to reach new steps in the Brazilian Internet society. Now you have the floor, Professor. Thank you so much, Wagner. Should I say anything else? Wagner has already addressed how we create our committee, our governance, and our framework. Anyway, it's a great honor to be here once again. Good morning to all of you. Anytime we address novelties, we bump into surprises. Since 1996, I'm direct related to internet governance in Brazil, and I have had the privilege to travel around, to visit different countries, and to collaborate to Brazil to make a difference. Brazil became an international reference. Brazil had the privilege to put together two very important international events in internet governance. A little ago, the Internet Corporation for Assignment Number and Names, that is an agency related to the American government, which dealt with internet. But 1.5 years ago, that relationship between government and ICANN that has been broken, friendly, of course. I was part of this 2 years negotiation responsible for such a transition. And nowadays, names, domains, and IP addresses is part of the community itself. Brazil has participated actively as part of that study, and Brazil is seen as a big difference in the internet world. When the W3C office came into Brazil, that was an additional contribution which made a great difference, and Brazil stood out and became the only Brazil became the only Latin American country to host a NIC.br office. What about internet without web, without content? Nothing. Therefore, this huge web contribution, and we are currently in touch with Windsurf, responsible to develop the protocol IPv6, and Timberlease also, who was responsible to put together the first case studies where contents were broadcasted throughout the internet, and he's known as the Internet Father. W3C Conference Web.br 2017. This is one of the most important meetings where we share best practices for web development. And this is the main topic of this year's conference. Immersion and to transcend what we have. It's an additional leap. This is a joint effort between the W3C office and the Technology Studies Center, which is a department, part of NIC.br. NIC.br is the executive branch of the board responsible to coordinate all activities developed by the internet in Brazil. Web virtual reality technology in constant expansion will be addressed in the next 2 days, based on technical perspectives, in addition to design, interaction, and usability. Of course, that some additional topics will be here addressed. When we talk about web, we are talking about algorithms, Internet of Things, digital publications, privacy. Privacy is a very updated topic always. There is a law to be approved by the Congress to understand at what extent should my data become public or not, and we are following that closely. Should I render all my personal and private information, or is my privacy still respected? And this year, our goal is to raise that topic, anything which goes beyond the screen's limits, a tablet or a cell phone screen. Immersion is responsible to raise up to the surface how human beings can interact to new technologies and to be empowered by new events. For the past 20 years, Internet has been built by several hands. And this is a great satisfaction, as it's not conducted in the underworld, but rather a joint effort conducted by entrepreneurs, activists, users, governors, turning Internet into a key tool to foster social development. How could we imagine today's world without social media, social network, and the interaction among people? Brazil has around 50 to 55% of its total population with internet access. We have still a long way to go. Brazil is somehow excluded, if you know what I mean. But the web is a tool that should be applied at all levels. That is a technology. It's a success, a transversal, a cross-sectional success in all activities. And that should not be restrained to few users, but rather to benefit the population as a whole. And if I had more time, I could illustrate several cases where Internet has totally changed the world of those users in several applications. Web gives an additional human touch to Internet. If it was just the TCP/IP technology, there would be no content. But web is responsible for life, for content, and to keep that collective approach interconnected, web still needs your constant collaboration for its development and to follow new technologies and standards. And with that in mind, the Brazilian Internet Committee, thanks to its multi-sectorial model that is not done by government agencies only, but rather a multi-sectorial approach where we have activists from third sector, faculty members, academies, entrepreneurs, everyone discussing about different applications of Internet in Brazil. When CGI was created back in 1995, that was a totally new experience in this country. A governor that throughout its decree would trespass its responsibility to a multi-sectorial group. That started with 9 people, and today they amount to 21 members, advisors. And there is a presidential decree responsible to regulate the governance and the Brazilian model to Internet and web. And moreover, there is an open public hearing to revise not only the multi-sectorial structure, but the framework of the committee. And that public hearing will end by the end of November. If you have any suggestion, just visit our webpage and collaborate somehow, saying how or what would you like to see happening. And within this idea of multi-sectorial, we created the web technology group, Ceweb.br. Ceweb was raised as part of the information hub, which is the legal structure to hire people, to contract material, and to have a physical area where the group can work. And NIC is the executive branch. That is a rather political entity and governance responsible for the main decisions that goes to NIC, and NIC throughout several departments. They implement decisions, projects, and activities. The Ceweb activities, they are inspired in that multi-sectorial nature. Internet service, which today is very important and present in all our activities. In 2009, we approved some principles for the use of internet. We were facing some challenges where several judges and public entities, they were deciding what can and what cannot be done. And we faced some legal actions, and we decided to work over some solid principles that cannot be discussed, and to train those that take subjective decisions without knowing about the content and internet core. And those principles, they guide CGI activities, and fortunately, not only of CGI, but also the governance of internet at different levels in Brazil. And we have a great relationship with all spheres of the power, legal, executive, or legislative. Our politicians, they are so creative. And we are very careful to go on with that, to avoid that any law could restrain our internet freedom. Web is still the preference interface. Web penetration is huge that CGI end up developing some basic principles, and I'd like to highlight some of them. Out of those 10 principles, I would like to mention 5 which are intensively intertwined. They are full part of Ceweb activities. The first one to be highlighted is the use of the internet that should follow the principles of freedom of expression. Recently, there was a proposal to prohibit some of them, like censorship, a seed of censorship. But fortunately, media, radio, TV, newspapers, everyone complained about that. Principle of freedom of expression, privacy, and respect to human rights. That is a pillar to the development of internet and web, and we want to do the most we can. Second principle, internet governance should be executed multilaterally, democratically, with transparency, with the participation of several sectors of the society. Everyone together building an internet to access to all, preserving always collective creation. This is key. We should not just let that go to be manipulated by few, not transparent tools. No, we can no longer accept this type of activity in the internet and the web. Third principle, internet access should be universal. Internet to everyone, web to all. We cannot have people excluded. And every time I address it, and those of you that follow me for many, many years, Brazil has, up to today, part of its population excluded. Maybe because they haven't got infrastructure, whereas others are excluded because they have no accessibility, maybe another physical barrier. And we want that everyone becomes internet users. That is universal. That should be a mean for social and human development, collaborating to a society of inclusion, fair to the benefits of all. Elderly homes where elderly people, they were feeling excluded. They were no longer part of the world. They would no longer talk to their grandchildren, but then someone taught them, and now they can talk to their son, to their grandchildren, and they feel part of Brazilian society. Fourth principle, cultural diversity. Cultural diversity has to be respected. We have a huge country where other ideas and other cultures will raise. We can't just isolate ourselves and close our eyes to what does not please us. Cultural diversity should be respected, preserved, stimulated, without just understanding beliefs, values. Internet is mine, it's yours, it's ours, no difference. And finally, fifth principle, Internet should be based in open standards, which allows interoperability and everyone's participation. Let's together, more and more, create an Internet to all, develop something that will place our country in a fair level. We have a huge country of many resources. We have a potential to become a leader in this sector. And CGI, with its multi-sectorial governance model, fostering conferences like this and others, we'll have an open forum to all in Rio de Janeiro, 14, 15, and 16 of November. That's an open forum which will address not only web content, but also governance, rights, and some other details. Internet should go on with the model, with that successful model, and we do count on you. Events like that, with new ideas to go on with the journey. So on behalf of the CGI and Web.br, you are mostly welcome, and I wish you a great success in the next 2 days. And shall we use whatever is being discussed here to the good of Brazilian people. My wish is to keep on fighting for a transparent, universal, democratic, and open Internet without technical or physical limits, where the whole country will be included with access to that tool that changes our lives daily. As I am in the third age, I will probably not be able to see all good results, but when I look backwards, 15, 20, 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, what happened in the Internet is a permanent revolution. And I have told you that before. As a USP University, I was the first coordinator to implement Internet network in all university campus. In 1995, we opened the first network, and this is, the professor said, we are in the eye of the hurricane. Internet is a new revolution that is indeed a hurricane, and we do not know exactly where that will take us to. And 22 years later, I do not know yet where Internet will end. What I can tell you is that we are part of that revolution. So let's try to do something positive positive to our country, so we can improve the image people have about Brazil, and let's make Brazil a reference in the field of web and internet. I wish you lots of success. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado, Glaser, pela...
Thank you very much, Grazi, for your presentation and for the opening, also for your kind words. I would like to close this opening of the event with a few reminders. Many of you who are web developers will definitely know when the web was first created, it was created to enable any person anywhere in the world to have access to documents that are stored in any computer anywhere in the world as well. And that was a period that we used to call the document web. With the evolution of technology, we started calling it the data web, because the possibility of having access to data and to combine data in the web, we were able to customize our experience browsing the internet, and our experience with the internet has brought information that is really very similar to what we wanted to have, in fact. And this is thanks to a combination of data of what was possible. We had access to information in different apps, and to a large extent, we're experienced this to the data web, and we now have the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things obviously results from things that are more and more different and connected to the Internet. We have always said that the web is one of the best interfaces for you to connect to people and for things that are connected to the Internet. We have said that because the web is universal, it is easy, it is interesting as a means to enable human beings to say what they want. It also enables access to information. But we're looking ahead. In this conference, we're going to see the Internet of Things. In this conference, we're going to see the data web, or the data internet, but we want to look ahead because this is going to have an impact on your careers. It'll have an impact on your career and in the professionals you're going to be from now on. As Grazi said, the Internet is no longer limited to limits and to the areas that are limited by the computer screen or the cell phone screen. It is being expanded far beyond. And that is why we have included this topic, immersion and transcendence.